I sat in my corner office at Vance Tech Solutions, staring at the glowing monitor as the launch countdown ticked away. 4 years of my life, my sleepless nights, and every dollar I had were tied to this single release. The blue light from the screen washed over my hands, but I couldn't stop them from shaking slightly. "Ethan, darling, you need to breathe," Claire said, leaning against my oak desk. She looked stunning in her white blazer, the image of a supportive wife and chief marketing officer. "We are minutes away from securing the Apex Corp contract." "You did it?" "I know," I muttered, my eyes narrowing as I refreshed the main network dashboard. Something feels off about these system logs, Claire." "Off how?" She set her coffee cup down, her voice dropping an octave. "We audited the firewalls twice yesterday." "Look here," I said, pointing my finger at a series of unexplained data spikes. "Someone accessed the core architectural blueprints at 2 in the morning. That's top-tier server access. Only 3 people have those credentials." Claire immediately pulled her hands back and crossed her arms. Her eyes darted down toward her locked phone, which vibrated twice against the wood. She flipped it face down without checking the notification. "It was probably just Marcus running stress tests," she said quickly. "You know how obsessed he is with server load before a major drop." "Marcus is on vacation until noon today," I said, turning my head to look her in the eye. "He explicitly told me he wouldn't touch the mainframe until he got to the office." Claire laughed, a sharp, light sound that felt entirely out of place in the quiet room. "Ethan, you're being paranoid. It's launch day jitters. You always do this to yourself right before a big milestone." "Am I?" I asked, leaning back in my leather chair. "Julian Hayes just scheduled an emergency press conference for 11 o'clock. Do you know what his company is announcing?" "Julian?" She blinked, adjusting the golden strap of her watch. "Why would I know what Julian Hayes is doing? He's your college rival, not mine." "He's announcing a new software suite," I said quietly, watching every micro-expression on her face. "The promo video his team leaked 30 minutes ago uses the exact same tagline we drafted last week. Smarter architecture for the modern enterprise." Word for word, Claire. "It's a generic tagline, Ethan," she replied smoothly, though her fingers twitched against her sleeve. "Marketing trends overlap all the time. Julian has always chased your tail. He probably saw our teaser trailer and copied the phrasing." "He didn't just copy the phrasing," I said. "A source at Hayes Media told me their core interface looks identical to ours. The layout, the navigation logic, the underlying structure. It's almost like he built it using our exact blueprints." "Are you accusing someone in this office of selling us out?" Claire's tone turned cold. "Because if you are, you're insulting me too. I've put as much blood and sweat into Vance Tech as you have." "I didn't accuse you," I said softly. "I'm just trying to figure out how our life's work is sitting on Julian's server." "You need to step away from the monitor," she said, walking around the desk and placing a hand on my shoulder. Her touch felt oddly heavy. "Apex Corp executives will be here in 2 hours. If you look panicked, they will lose confidence. Let it go for now. Trust me." "I want to trust you," I said, looking up into her eyes. "You're my wife." "Then do it," she said with a warm smile that didn't quite reach her eyes. "Leave the logs alone. Focus on the deal." Before I could answer, my desk phone rang. I picked up the receiver immediately. "Ethan," Marcus's panicked voice came through the speaker. "I just logged into the remote backup from my phone. Someone cloned our entire database last night. The security key used, it was registered under Claire's login." My heart hammered against my ribs like a trapped bird, but my face remained completely motionless. I glanced at Claire, who was staring out the floor-to-ceiling window, casually adjusting her hair. "Are you sure?" I whispered into the phone, keeping my voice entirely flat. 100% sure, Marcus replied, his breath ragged. "Ethan, the files were sent directly to an external IP owned by Hayes Media. We've been breached from the inside." "I see," I said, keeping my gaze fixed on my wife. "Thanks for the update, Marcus. Keep this between us for now. I'll handle it." I hung up the receiver slowly. "Everything fine with Marcus?" Claire asked without turning around. "Yes," I said, my voice steady, cold, and composed. "Everything is crystal clear now." The server room in the basement of Vance Tech was freezing, the steady hum of cooling fans echoing off the metal racks. I stood over Marcus's workstation, watching red lines of diagnostic text scroll down his dark screen. My chest felt hollow, a heavy numbness spreading through my veins with every passing second. "Is there any chance of an IP spoof?" I asked, my voice barely above a whisper. Could someone have hijacked her credentials remotely? Marcus typed rapidly, his face pale under the harsh fluorescence. I ran 3 separate isolation protocols, Ethan. The transfer didn't come from an outside breach. The security handshakes used her personal hardware token, the physical encrypted flash drive she keeps in her desk drawer. Show me the destination again, I said. Marcus pressed a key, expanding a block of text. Here. The file bundle was compressed, encrypted with an asymmetric key and uploaded at 2:14 a.m. The recipient address belongs to a private server registered under Hayes Media Holdings. Specifically, Julian Hayes's personal network block. I leaned against the heavy metal desk, closing my eyes for a long moment. Every memory of the last 5 years flashed before me. Working 18-hour days side by side, sharing cheap takeout on the office floor, celebrating our marriage and our company's founding on the exact same weekend. It hadn't just been a business partnership. It had been my entire life. Ethan, what do you want to do? Marcus asked quietly, stopping his hands above the keyboard. We can lock her account right now. We can revoke her access keys and alert the board before the Apex Corp executives arrive for the signing. No, I said, opening my eyes. If we revoke her access now, Julian will know we caught them. He'll scrub his servers, claim it was a corporate mistake, or pull out of his press release entirely. We need absolute proof that he intends to use our stolen property commercially. She sold us out, Marcus said, his voice shaking with anger. She sold you out. How can you sit there and stay calm? I'm not calm, Marcus, I said, my knuckles white against the desk. I'm focused. The heavy door to the server lab suddenly clicked open. We both spun around to see David, Claire's younger brother, standing in the doorway. He was an intern in our quality assurance department, a quiet kid I had personally mentored for the past 2 years. He looked between Marcus and me, his eyes wide with anxiety. Ethan? David stammered, holding a stack of printed reports. I was looking for Marcus to sign off on the beta logs. Is everything okay? David, I said, stepping forward. How long have you been standing outside that door? He swallowed hard, shifting his weight from foot to foot. Long enough to hear Julian's name. This doesn't concern you, kid, Marcus interjected sternly. Go back upstairs. Wait, I said, stopping Marcus with a slight hand gesture. I walked over to David and looked straight into his eyes. David, I need you to be honest with me right now. Have you noticed anything unusual with Claire lately? Anything at all? David shrank back slightly, clutching the papers tighter against his chest. Ethan, please don't do this. She's my sister. And I'm the person who gave you a chance when no one else would, I replied softly. I built this company to give all of us a future, including you. If there is something I need to know, you have to tell me. A tear tracked down David's cheek as he looked down at the floor. She's been meeting him, he confessed in a hushed, trembling voice. At the Westin Hotel downtown. I saw them together 3 weeks ago in the lounge. I asked her about it that night, and she told me they were just discussing a potential merger between Hayes Media and Vance Tech. A merger? I asked, a bitter smile touching my lips. We never discussed a merger. She swore me to secrecy, David continued, his voice cracking. She said if I told you, it would ruin a massive surprise deal she was working on to make you rich enough to retire. She said Julian had investors lined up. I didn't know she was giving him our code, Ethan. I swear I didn't know. I believe you, I said, placing a reassuring hand on his shoulder. It's okay, David. You did the right thing by telling me now. What are you going to do? David asked, wiping his eyes with his sleeve. Are you going to confront her? No, I said firmly, turning back toward Marcus. Confrontation gives her a chance to cover her tracks or spin the narrative. We are going to play her game, but we are changing the rules. What do you mean? Marcus asked, leaning forward. The final contract binder is sitting on my desk right now, I explained, my plan forming rapidly in my mind. It contains our primary deployment code and final architecture maps for Apex Corporation. Claire expects me to sign it and hand her the digital master keys before noon. We can't let her have those keys, Marcus insisted. She won't get the real ones, I replied, my voice cold and decisive. Marcus, I want you to construct a dummy file package. Mirror our interface completely, but embed subtle, watermarked tracking scripts deep within the underlying framework. Code that specifically broadcasts its signature when executed on external servers. Marcus smiled slowly, catching on. A digital Trojan horse. The moment Julian runs that code at his press conference or shows it to clients, it will prove theft beyond a shadow of a doubt. Exactly, I said, turning to David. David, you say nothing to your sister. Act completely normal. I can do that, David said, nodding grimly. Good, I said, taking a deep breath. Claire wants a high-stakes game. I'm going to give her one. The glass-walled conference room was buzzing with tension as 11 o'clock approached. Outside, dozens of Vance Tech employees moved back and forth, entirely unaware that the foundation of our entire firm was sitting on a digital precipice. I stood near the head of the polished oak table, adjusting my cufflinks while watching Claire carefully set out thick leather-bound folders for the incoming Apex Corp delegation. You look tense, Ethan, Claire said, walking over to me with a brilliant, practiced smile. She reached up to smooth my collar, her touch light and affectionate. This is what we've worked for 4 long years to achieve. You should be beaming. I'm just focused on the execution, I replied, forcing my expression into a relaxed smile. A lot can happen before signatures hit the paper. Nothing is going to go wrong, she urged softly, sliding a heavy blue binder across the table toward my chair. Everything is set. The master encryption key drive is sitting right inside the back pocket of that binder. You just need to sign Section 4, pass the portfolio over to the Apex legal team, and we can finally celebrate. Right. Celebrate, I repeated, glancing down at the polished metal thumb drive attached to the inner sleeve of the binder. Just an hour ago, Marcus and I had performed the final swap in the secure server room. The drive inside this folder didn't contain the true, production-ready framework for Vance Tech's flagship platform. Instead, it housed a carefully compiled mirror environment, a functional decoy loaded with complex, hidden tracking scripts. The moment those files were initialized or executed on an unauthorized network, they would quietly broadcast encrypted diagnostic pings straight back to Marcus's external dashboard, tagging the precise IP address, hardware ID, and timestamp. I took my seat at the head of the table. Claire quickly pulled out her seat beside me, her hands disappearing underneath the mahogany table surface. I caught the faint, rhythmical tapping of her thumb against a glass screen. A quick glance toward the reflection in the dark glass window revealed what she was doing. She was sending rapid, encrypted text messages. It's on the table. He's signing now, the message preview read on her screen before she quickly flipped her phone upside down. Who's texting you at a moment like this? I asked casually, keeping my tone light and conversational. Claire flinched slightly, though her smile didn't waver for a second. Oh, just the catering team for tonight's victory party at the gala. They wanted to confirm the head count for the champagne toast. Good, I said, opening the binder to the signature page. We wouldn't want any unexpected surprises at the gala, would we? Of course not, she replied, resting her hand gently over mine. Ethan, once this contract is finalized today, our lives are going to change completely. We won't have to stress over development cycles or funding rounds ever again. Is that what you want? I looked directly into her eyes, searching for even a flicker of guilt. To walk away from all of this? I want security, Ethan, she said, her eyes chilling just a fraction beneath her sweet demeanor. I want to know that all the sacrifices we made were actually worth something. Julian Hayes' company was threatening to swallow our market share last month. Signing this deal secures our future before anyone else can steal our momentum. Julian won't be stealing anything from us today, I said smoothly. The heavy double doors of the conference room swung open, and 3 executives from Apex Corp walked in, led by their senior legal counsel, Arthur Vance. Arthur gave me a sharp nod as he pulled out a leather chair opposite me. Ethan, Claire, Arthur said, opening his briefcase. We've reviewed the preliminary compliance reports submitted by your team this morning. Everything looks immaculate. If you are ready to execute the master agreement, my team is prepared to finalize the partnership right now. We are ready, Claire chimed in instantly, leaning forward with eager eyes. Ethan has already reviewed the final clauses. Is that correct, Ethan? Arthur asked, poising his pen over the signature line on his copy. Once you sign, Vance Tech guarantees that the software package on that drive is entirely original, uncompromised, and ready for immediate deployment. I looked down at the paper. The black ink lines represented 4 years of my life's passion, but they also represented the trap Claire had walked into with Julian. If I signed this, the decoy key would become the official build recognized under this binding legal instrument. Every single line of code contained on this drive is uniquely linked to Vance Tech, I said clearly, looking Arthur in the eye. And I personally guarantee that anyone attempting to misuse or duplicate this specific software will be exposed the second it runs. Wonderful, Arthur said, smiling as he brought his pen down. Let's make it official. Claire held her breath beside me, her fingers digging tightly into the fabric of her skirt as she watched my hand move across the paper. I placed my pen at the bottom of section 4, firm and deliberate, signing my name in clear, flowing script. Clack. I capped the pen and pushed the document across the table to Arthur. "It's done," I announced quietly. Claire let out a long, audible sigh of relief and immediately reached down under the table to send another swift message on her phone. I caught her subtle nod toward the door, where David stood quietly watching us from the hallway with a somber expression on his face. I leaned back in my leather chair, feeling a cold, calm certainty wash over my chest. The trap was set, the signatures were locked, and Claire had just walked straight into the nightmare she had built for us. The grand ballroom of the Grand Regent Hotel was filled with soft orchestral music, sparkling crystal chandeliers, and hundreds of tech executives in black tie attire. Apex Corp had spared no expense hosting this celebration, inviting every major leader in the sector. Standing near the edge of the room with a glass of sparkling water, I watched Claire adjust her red silk dress. She radiated false pride, convinced that tonight marked her triumph. "Ethan, look at everyone here," Claire whispered, swirling her champagne glass. "They're all waiting to hear Apex announce our deal. You should be mingling instead of hiding by the wall." "I'm enjoying the view from right here," I said softly, my eyes fixed on the center stage. "Besides, the main event hasn't even started yet." "Don't be dramatic," she laughed, leaning into my shoulder. "Our contract is signed. Nothing can ruin this evening." Before I could reply, the lights across the ballroom dimmed slightly, and a spotlight focused on the main stage. Julian Hayes stepped up to the podium, wearing a tailored tuxedo and a triumphant smirk. The crowd began to applaud as he adjusted the microphone. "Thank you, ladies and gentlemen." Julian's voice echoed loudly through the ballroom speakers. "Tonight, before Apex Corp makes their official evening announcement, Hayes Media is proud to reveal a revolutionary leap forward in enterprise architecture. Effective immediately, we are launching Project Aegis, a dynamic, self-optimizing platform designed to redefine modern corporate infrastructure." Claire's breath hitched slightly beside me, though she quickly masked her reaction with a sip of her drink. "Listen to him," I murmured into Claire's ear. "Sounds surprisingly familiar, doesn't it?" "It's just grandstanding, Ethan," Claire stammered, her fingers tightening around her glass. "Julian always loves stealing the spotlight." Up on stage, Julian tapped a remote control, casting his presentation onto the massive 4K LED projector screen behind him. "Let me give you a live demonstration of Aegis running in real time. Notice the proprietary data indexing and unique routing logic, technology that our competitors said was years away from being viable." He initiated the live code demonstration. Lines of structure scrolled across the 60-foot display screen. I glanced across the room, catching the eyes of Marcus, who was standing quietly by the main AV control booth at the rear of the hall. I gave Marcus a short, single nod. Marcus immediately slotted our encrypted override flash drive directly into the main production console. Suddenly, the screen behind Julian flickered violently with static. Julian paused, blinking at the display. "Apologies, ladies and gentlemen, just a minor technical glitch with the feed." The slide presentation disappeared. In its place, bold red diagnostics began to flood the massive screen. A giant notification popped up across the monitor. "Tracking watermark verified, IP origin detected." Gasps rippled across the crowded ballroom. Julian spun around, his face suddenly draining of all color as he stared at the screen. "What is this?" Julian barked into the microphone, his polished voice cracking. "Tech team, fix the display feed right now." The screen didn't return to his presentation. Instead, a series of time-stamped high-resolution server logs expanded across the entire display. Right at the top, highlighted in bright yellow, was the exact file transfer route. Origin, Claire server-destination. Julian under. Below the server logs, a series of text messages popped up in crystal clear detail. Messages exported directly from the server handshakes. "He just signed the contract binder. The master build key is yours. Launch Aegis now." Read the last text message displayed on the screen, dated less than 5 hours ago. The entire ballroom fell into a terrifying, suffocating silence. Hundreds of guests turned their heads, their shocked eyes darting back and forth between Julian on stage and Claire standing next to me. Claire dropped her champagne glass. It shattered loudly against the marble floor, sparkling wine splashing across her heels. "Ethan." Claire gasped, her voice trembling violently as she stared at the screen. What did you do?" "I didn't do anything, Claire," I replied, my voice completely level. I just let your plan run its natural course. Without another word, I walked down the center aisle of the ballroom, stepping past stunned executives, and walked straight up the stairs onto the stage. Julian tried to step in front of the podium, his chest heaving with panicked breaths. "Ethan, this is a private demonstration." Julian hissed under his breath, backing away as I reached out and took the microphone directly from his hands. "Good evening, everyone," I said, my voice projecting clearly through every speaker in the room. "What you are looking at on this screen is not Julian Hayes' breakthrough technology. You are looking at a decoy framework, a trapped software package developed by Vance Tech Solutions." The room erupted into quiet whispers and frantic murmurs. Arthur Vance and the entire board of Apex Corp stood up from their front row table, their expressions cold and severe. "At 2:14 a.m. yesterday morning," I continued, pointing back at the timestamp on the screen, "our proprietary blueprints were unlawfully accessed using an internal security token and uploaded directly to Julian Hayes' personal network. Julian then attempted to rebrand our work as his own product, Aegis." "That's a lie," Julian shouted, stepping toward the microphone. "This is a setup. Ethan rigged this entire display to defame my company. The code you just executed on stage contains our embedded cryptographic watermark," I said, looking Julian dead in the eye. "It pinged our secure servers the second you booted it. Arthur, if your legal team checks the master drive I signed today, you will find the exact matching diagnostic signature." Arthur Vance stepped forward toward the stage, his voice booming over the commotion. "We don't need to check, Ethan. The evidence is sitting 60 feet high." I looked out into the crowd at Claire, who stood frozen near the back, tears streaming down her face as every camera phone in the room turned toward her. "The demonstration is over," I said softly into the microphone, handing it back to Julian's trembling hands. "Enjoy the rest of your evening." The grand ballroom dissolved into utter chaos the moment I stepped down from the stage. Security personnel quickly moved in to surround Julian Hayes, while Arthur Vance and the Apex Corp legal team marched directly toward the stage with furious expressions. "Julian Hayes," Arthur announced in a loud, commanding voice that echoed over the panic. "Apex Corp is terminating all existing negotiations and preliminary contracts with Hayes Media immediately. Our legal department will be filing an emergency injunction for corporate espionage within the hour." "Wait, Arthur, listen to me," Julian yelled, backing away as two security guards grabbed his arms. "I was set up. This wasn't my idea. Claire brought the files to me. She promised me exclusive access to Vance Tech's architecture if I gave her 30% equity in Hayes Media." The crowd gasped as Julian pointed a trembling finger toward Claire, who was standing near the center aisle. Every head in the room snapped in her direction. Her face was completely pale, tears streaming down her cheeks, ruining her makeup. "You coward!" Claire screamed at Julian, her voice cracking with pure panic. "You came to me. You told me Ethan was going to bankrupt Vance Tech. You manipulated me." "Manipulated you?" Julian sneered, struggling against the security guards holding him back. "You walked into my office 3 weeks ago with a drive full of stolen code, begging for a way out of your marriage. You wanted the money without waiting for his company to grow." "Shut up. Just shut up." Claire sobbed, dropping her clutch bag to the floor as she rushed toward me. She grabbed my arm with trembling hands, her eyes desperate and bloodshot. "Ethan, please. You have to listen to me. Julian forced me into this. He threatened to ruin our launch if I didn't give him those files. You know how much I love you." I slowly reached down and unclasped her fingers from my jacket, stepping back to maintain my distance. "Don't lie to me anymore, Claire," I said, my voice eerily calm amid the surrounding noise. "I saw the server logs. I saw the encrypted messages you sent him from our office, right under my nose." "Ethan, please," she begged, dropping to her knees right in front of the stunned crowd. "We can fix this. We're partners. We built Vance Tech together. Don't throw our life away over a mistake." "It wasn't a mistake, Claire. It was a choice," I replied smoothly. I reached inside my inner jacket pocket and pulled out a thick, white folder that Marcus had prepared for me earlier that afternoon. I held it out toward her. What is this?" she asked, her voice shaking as she looked up at the envelope. "These are formal termination papers revoking your role as Chief Marketing Officer at Vance Tech Solutions, effective immediately," I said. "And right behind them are initial divorce papers." "No. Ethan, no." Claire wept, clutching her head with her hands. "You can't fire me. You can't divorce me. I'm your wife. You betrayed your company and you betrayed your husband," I said firmly. "You don't get to keep either." David stepped out from the crowd of onlookers, walking over to stand directly beside Marcus and me. Claire looked up at her younger brother, her eyes filled with desperate hope. "David, tell him," Claire pleaded, reaching out toward him. "Tell Ethan I would never hurt him on purpose. You're my brother. Speak up for me." David looked down at his sister with a heartbroken expression, shaking his head slowly. "I can't do that, Claire." "David," she cried out. "You lied to me, Claire," David said, his voice trembling with emotion. "You told me you were trying to help Ethan retire early. You used me to cover up your meetings with Julian. I saw the digital forensics Marcus pulled from the server lab today. The audit trail doesn't lie. You sold us out. You're turning on your own blood?" Claire spat, her grief suddenly twisting into bitter disbelief. "You turned on Ethan first," David replied quietly, stepping back. "He trusted you. We all trusted you." Two uniformed police officers pushed their way through the ballroom doors, guided directly toward Julian by Apex Corp's security team. "Julian Hayes, you are under arrest for federal corporate espionage and unauthorized access to protected computer systems," the lead officer declared, snapping handcuffs around Julian's wrists. "This is ridiculous. Call my lawyers," Julian shouted as he was roughly escorted past the crowd, his refined composure completely shattered. "Claire set this whole thing up. Put her in handcuffs too." Claire slumped onto the floor as the officers led Julian away, the realization of her absolute ruin crashing down on her. Surrounding executives whispered ruthlessly, recording her breakdown on their phones. In a single evening, her reputation in the industry was obliterated, her career was destroyed, and her marriage was over. "Let's go, Marcus," I said quietly, turning my back on the woman who had traded my trust for greed. "We have a real launch to prepare for tomorrow." Months after the courtroom dust finally settled, I sat alone in my newly reorganized office at Vance Tech Solutions, watching gentle raindrops streak down the floor-to-ceiling window. The heavy silence in the room was no longer suffocating. It was peaceful. The original blue and gold office furniture Claire had chosen was gone, replaced by simple, clean wooden designs that reflected a fresh start. My private line chimed and I pressed the speaker button on my desk console. "Ethan, I just received the official court decree from downtown," Marcus's clear, energized voice rang through the speaker. "Judge Evelyn Carter officially signed off on the final settlement rulings half an hour ago." "What are the parameters, Marcus?" I asked, leaning back into my chair and taking a slow breath. "Judge Carter completely finalized the corporate espionage charges against Julian Hayes," Marcus explained, the pride evident in his tone. "He's serving 3 years in federal custody, and his company has been ordered to pay Vance Tech liquid restitution for structural damages. More importantly, Judge Carter fully upheld the asset division agreement. Claire's claim to your intellectual property and equity was completely thrown out. So Vance Tech remains 100% independent," I said softly, looking over the finalized corporate registry documents on my screen. 100% under your sole ownership," Marcus confirmed. "David and I are wrapping up the final deployment server setup downstairs right now. The global network integration for Apex Corp goes live in exactly 15 minutes. "Thank you, Marcus," I said, my voice filled with genuine appreciation. "For everything." "I'll see you on the main floor for the countdown, boss," Marcus replied before disconnecting the call. As soon as the line went silent, my personal phone began to vibrate on the desk surface. I looked down at the screen. The caller ID showed an unlisted number, but I recognized the digits instantly. I picked it up and held it to my ear without speaking. "Ethan? Is that you?" Claire's frantic, ragged voice came through the receiver. She sounded completely broken, a stark contrast to the composed, polished woman she used to be. "Please don't hang up. I'm begging you." "I'm here, Claire," I said quietly, keeping my tone completely calm and free of anger. "Ethan, I can't find work anywhere," she sobbed, her words coming out in breathless, panicked gasps. "Every single agency in the state knows what happened at the gala. No marketing firm will even let me through their doors. The press ruined me, Ethan. My apartment lease is up and I have nowhere left to go." "You made your choices, Claire," I replied smoothly. "You traded our life and our trust for a shortcut with Julian. Actions carry consequences." "I made a terrible mistake," she cried out. "I was stupid, Ethan. I thought I wanted prestige, but I lost everything. I lost my family, my brother won't even answer my calls, and I lost the only man who ever truly loved me. Can't you give me a second chance? Just a small job at the firm? Anything? David is building a solid career here because he values honesty, I said, looking out at the city skyline washed in rain. And as for us, there are no second chances. I harbored a lot of bitterness when this first happened, Claire. But today I don't feel anger toward you anymore. I just feel nothing. Ethan, please, she wept. Don't do this to me. I wish you well, Claire. I hope you find a way to rebuild your life on a foundation of truth, I said softly. Goodbye. I ended the call without waiting for her reply, sliding the phone into my pocket and permanently blocking the number. The relief that washed over me was immediate, light, and freeing. I stood up, adjusted my jacket, and walked out of my office toward the central development floor. The entire team was gathered around the large monitoring screens, where bright green status bars were filling up across the global network maps. David stood near the primary console, nodding respectfully as I walked up beside Marcus. 3 seconds to global deployment, Ethan, Marcus said, smiling as he gestured toward the main activation lever on the terminal. Do the honors. I stepped forward and pressed the primary activation key. The screen flashed bright white before filling with continuous streams of active diagnostic pings, our real, uncompromised software platform successfully deploying across 5 continents simultaneously. The entire room erupted into wild cheers, applause, and celebration. Marcus clapped me on the shoulder, and David gave me a firm nod of respect from across the console. Looking at the glowing screens, I took a deep, full breath. I had survived the ultimate betrayal, reclaimed my life's work from the hands of greed, and secured a bright future built strictly on integrity, resilience, and unshakable self-respect.